Greetings, everyone. My name is John Gilbert. I'm the Chief Operating Officer and Executive Vice President for the Rudin family here in New York City. We own and operate roughly 15 million square feet. 10 of it is office and 5 of it is residential. I'm also the chair of the REBNY Technology Committee, and I'm really excited to kick off day 2 with a very unique and interesting panel. People say that all politics and all real estate is local, but I think we can say all PropTech is global, because we have Stanton Wong in Shanghai, we have Steve Sperry in Seattle, and we have my dear friend Ron Victor in California. So we are we're literally covering halfway around the globe, which whether you want to go east or west, I guess we got to go west. But I just wanted to bring the panelists into this conversation, get right to it. As most of you are aware, the PropTech Challenge this year was divided into multiple categories. Today's category is operations, wellness, and sustainability. And what we're going to be, there were over 30 companies that submitted within this category, over 50 in all. And what I want to do today is to really kick off this panel. There'll be presentations all day long with the folks that some of the folks that were voted to be a panelist by our 4 judges. I was not a judge, but we're excited to have these 3 companies talk about their products. And I'm going to start with Stanton because you're the farthest away. You're in Shanghai. Tell us what GIGA is doing, and I'm really interested. You know, as so many real estate companies like Rudin and others begin to focus on Internet of Things and to focus on grabbing data within our spaces. You came in with a very interesting application which talked about the reset standards. And if you could talk about the problem that you think that GIGA solves, and to talk about your thoughts in terms of how important, how we get to standardizing many of the devices that we're putting into our buildings. So Stanton, why don't you kick this off?
Yep, thank you very much, John. My name's Stanton. I am the president of Reset, and we're a division under GIGA. So what we are is we're a building standard focused on operations. And essentially it's everything that we do is on data and data quality and continuous monitoring. So Reset started off with air quality. And the reason we did air quality is because the team that started Reset was based in Shanghai, and China was having an air quality problem. Everyone knew that air quality is bad outside, but no one knew about how bad air quality was inside. What we looked at was continuous monitoring devices, which didn't exist at that time for commercial buildings at a more reasonable price, that you can install in indoor spaces and look at the trends of how your air quality is performing. So that's essentially what we pioneered, and the standard evolved into something that's focused just around continuous monitoring. So the easiest way to describe us is we're similar to LEED and WELL in the sense that we're building standards, but we are much more interested in just the data aspect of it. So we're not about your design, your solutions. It's just about how you collect and automate your data collection.
And why are standards important? What are they? Why is it important to be standardizing this? If I grab data, indoor air quality, I can grab CO2 data, I can grab data dealing with particulate matter, and I can express that data. How do the standards fit into that? So
for standards, there's 2 reasons. One is just making it so that you can compare apples to apples. When we first started, some of the issues that we're encountering were essentially where do you put your monitors? Do you put it on the ceiling, or do you put it somewhere where it's more within breathing range? So our requirements are monitors are installed somewhere between 1 meter and 1.8 meters. So it's more within the range of the level that you would breathe at. Other things that we'd consider initially were the quality of the monitors. The first batches that we were testing 6 years ago, most of them didn't have a TVOC sensor. They used a CO2 sensor to mimic the TVOC data. So that's not something that's obvious. Monitors are going to tell you, oh, we're reporting these things, but you don't know the details behind them. So what we were doing, we're just testing the monitors to make sure that they were actually doing what they were supposed to be doing instead of mimicking it based on some kind of algorithm they were using.
So it's data quality, sounds like.
Exactly.
And got it. Well, Ron Victor, Iotium, you've been at this for, a good long time. One of the early folks in this space, and somebody who I really consider as a true thought leader. Talk to us about Iotium and what you're doing, and the things that you're seeing and finding in the real estate customers that you have.
Sure. Thanks, John. Very kind words. Appreciate it. Yeah, been around this doing PropTech for a while now. Very interesting space coming from Silicon Valley and entering this space to bring technology into the OT world. Yes, very focused on cybersecurity. The moment you look at connecting buildings, and now you're connecting HVAC systems, lighting systems, CO2 monitoring systems, access control systems. All of these can be compromised once they're connected, and they can bring a building down. The last thing you need is a press release, 40-story building hacked, elevators hacked, people stuck on 40 floors. So our perspective on this is absolutely conectivity is essential, data acquisition is essential, occupancy experience is essential, but all of that requires one big base foundation, which is security. So the ability to collect all the data from all these different systems and take them to a platform that can then analyze this data, whether it is the platform you built, John, whether it is what Stanton does, etc., to be able, the ability to take data at rest and data in motion, take it very securely across the WAN to wherever it's supposed to go, and the ability to then very securely enable people who want to remote in back into the building to change set points on the HVAC, the lighting, the CO2 monitoring system, etc. Technicians want to come in, data wants to go out, and all of that has to be done very securely. And we focus solely on the security aspect to make sure the infrastructure to do all of this, the IT infrastructure to leverage all this data very securely, to be able to remote access back in very securely. And last but not least, to be able to take applications like what Stanton is building, like what John, you've built, etc., and be able to deploy them at the edge rather than be solely dependent on those applications residing in the cloud, where now you're at the mercy of the internet. Instead, make that application run at the edge in the building, manage it completely remotely, so that you have the liberty to do both, take data to the cloud or move the application to the edge. And the IT infrastructure layer to do all of this is provided by us as a managed service to about 1,200 skyscrapers right now across US, Canada, Australia, and we add about 200 to 250 every quarter.
So Ron, do you consider yourself a hardware company, a software company, a cybersecurity company, or all the above?
The hardware is part of look at us like Xfinity, John. The box shows up, the pipe shows up, the customer chooses whether they want Hulu, Netflix, whatever. So those are all applications, whether you want a occupancy experience application, a people sensing application, an air quality filtering application. All of these applications are available in our app store in the cloud, an industrial app store from which people can download. We provide the actual infrastructure, and the infrastructure includes the edge infrastructure at the building, the hardware at the building completely managed by us as part of a managed service, as well as the orchestration in the cloud to be able to deploy all of this and control all of this, etc. These two components, both software, SaaS as a service, plus a hardware component, because you need all these applications to run on some hardware, which is completely secure, has full disk encryption. You have to assume people will steal this hardware, run away. Now, will they take the data? What do you do about GDPR compliance? People come to HIPAA compliance. All of that requires security built in. So the infrastructure to allow the data scientists to do what they do really well and not have to worry about security of the infrastructure, the controlling of the infrastructure, deployment of the infrastructure, that's all us as part of the managed service.
And are you connecting into a BMS? Do you ride on top of the BMS?
We are connecting into the BMS, into the HVAC system, the chiller system, the building network, in a spaghetti network where the elevator controls on the 4th floor, lighting control on the 8th floor, and the BMS in the basement. We connect all three separately without pulling risers and cables. So all of the above, John, either a full-fledged BMS where everything is converged to a switch, or in a spaghetti network, discrete systems across the building, across the campus, that we both apply. And the greenfield work, like what Stanton's doing with new people sensing devices, CO2 sensing devices, particle sensing devices, noise sensing, gunshot sensing devices, all of that.
Great. Very interesting. Steve Sperry in Seattle.
Hey,
Steve,
John.
talk to us about Minnow. You gave me a presentation a couple of weeks ago. Clearly what's happening in apartment buildings across the country and the world is that the model has changed, and the amount of labor intensive work that has to be done by existing building personnel has grown exponentially, simply because of deliveries, of all of these things. And I thought that your solution was quite interesting. So, tell us the problem you're trying to solve and how you solve it, and your background.
Sure. Well, I'm Stephen Sperry. I'm the CEO of Minnow. And, as the other two panelists were talking about IoT in the context of sort of building operations and monitoring, we see IoT also coming to building amenities. And that's the space that we're playing in. If you sort of step back and look at the broader trends, I think what's happening is we're transitioning into an economy where people buy things online and then they pick up those things nearby. And that trend, of course, started many, many years ago with Amazon. And as people increasingly ordered things online and had those things delivered to their buildings, it became a problem for the property management teams. Packages were piling up, and they were spending more and more time dealing with those packages. So the response was to implement package locker solutions. And that really started about 10 years ago. And now many buildings have implemented these types of solutions. We're seeing the same trends play out now in the food space. People are increasingly ordering food online, either from DoorDash and Uber Eats and other delivery services, or from restaurants, ghost kitchens, other local food providers, and having the food delivered to their buildings. The pandemic has accelerated that trend, right? People are spending more time at home, they're working from home, they're ordering more food, and property managers are now seeing the volume of food go up, and they're struggling to manage that. So Minnow has developed a solution to help buildings manage the volume of food deliveries. You can think of it like an Amazon locker for food. It's an IoT-enabled device that connects to a cloud-based service, and it enables the food to be efficiently delivered into the building so that the delivery people don't have to go up and down the elevators and potentially have face-to-face transactions with the tenants, which could expose either party to risk, especially in the time of a pandemic. But I think more importantly, it's a way to provide a more convenient experience for the tenants. So right now, food delivery is a synchronous process. You have to physically meet the driver face-to-face and have a handoff, and that's not particularly convenient. Of course, now with COVID, it's not even a safe thing to do. So, over the long term, we think that a solution like ours can not only provide the more convenient experience, but also can help buildings reduce the amount of staff time involved in managing food deliveries. And this is just sort of one step. We see IoT eventually moving toward other building amenities, whether those are sort of gym related or building services, tenant experience platforms. We think eventually smart connected devices are going to really define the tenant experience of the future.
So walk me through this. I've ordered my dinner. I've used my phone. I've ordered it. What happens after that? How do I know my food's here? What is the experience that I'm going to have when I go downstairs to get my food? How is Minnow making my life easier and more efficient?
Sure. So the main reason we make the experience better is that we make it an asynchronous experience. So you don't have to be at the same place and the same time as the food delivery person. The food delivery person can put the food into the Minnow system. You'll then receive a text message saying, "Hey, John, your order's ready to pick up." If you want to go get it right then, you can go down to the lobby and pick it up at that moment, or you can pick it up later when it's convenient. Because it's food, though, we need to sort of monitor it. That's where the IoT aspect comes in. You know, it's okay if a package sits in a package locker for 3 days. It's not okay if food sits in a food locker for 3 days. These are not temperature controlled systems. They're ambient, so the compartments are individually insulated to keep the food hot or cold, but it won't keep it indefinitely. So we need to be able to monitor how long that food is in there and send you a reminder maybe 30, 45 minutes later and say, hey, John, you haven't picked up your order yet. And then if the food is in there beyond what we call the pickup window, we notify the property manager and say, hey, this food needs to be discarded. What's happening now is that food is typically left in a lobby with a concierge. It starts to pile up. I was in a building in Seattle just last week, and they had about 20 deliveries sitting on a long table where they had set up for these deliveries, and nobody knew how long the food had been sitting there. In some cases, the tenants come down right away and pick up. Sometimes they don't, and the food just sits there and potentially has to be discarded because it's not even safe to eat. So with a device like ours, because we know when the food goes in and when it comes out, we can control that and make sure that nobody consumes food that isn't safe to eat.
And how much space do you need to have to put a Minnow system in an apartment building?
So that's a great question, John. This is where we differ from the package lockers. You know, a typical package locker might take up 15 to 20 feet of wall space. They're quite large, and they need to be because packages are quite large. But the typical food delivery is a fairly small contained package. So a Minnow pickup pod takes up only about 3 square feet of floor space. So we intentionally designed it to be very compact so that it can go just about anywhere, because we recognize that building lobbies were not designed for a system like this. And so it has to go into an existing space. And it takes about 30 minutes to install, plug it in, and it connects itself to the internet, and you're up and running.
Very cool. Well, I want to go back to each of you now and really, let's close our eyes and let's look, a year, 2 years out. And we'll start with you, Stan. Where do you see Reset? How do you see it helping to change the PropTech landscape? And how do you hope to ultimately, grow your business?
Okay, that's a big question. We recently started piloting our other standards. So the air standard was the first one. We started piloting the water, energy, and the waste standard with a gym in Shanghai. So the goal is to make it so that you can continuously monitor the water quality and the water flow, the energy usage, which we're very interested in, especially in how it compares with your air quality. And the waste, we are working with them to design a bin that is an IoT device, and it will detect how much weight gets put onto the bin, and then when it gets removed, so that we can track how much weight the bin will have. So just generally understanding how much of each is being measured. Generally, what we're thinking of in terms of the future is that all buildings will want to have this data, whether for ESG or for other purposes. And we want to have a structure and framework for buildings who are interested in moving in this direction to just slap a standard, use the standard and figure out how to put everything together. I think the hardest part for getting everything in place is the hardware. So with air quality, it took us 6 years to get to a point where there's now multiple companies reaching out to us every week in regards to getting monitors tested and everything. And that's only gonna help take care of certain regions, because if hardware manufacturers are too far away from you, delivering hardware back and forth, if there's issues or if there's no support, that's gonna be an issue. So that's the biggest thing that we see as a, basically, that's the hardest thing that we see as for the future. Just in terms of something that we've been doing recently with COVID, we looked into because COVID is transferred through air, through aerosols. We looked into how continuous monitoring data could help understand the risk of transmission. And so We went through approximately 100 different research papers to look at how air quality affects either the virus transmission rate, not virus transmission, the virus survivability or your immune system health. And looking at also CO2 and how dosage affects how likely you are to get enough particles of the virus to actually get sick. So looking at all those factors together, we compiled a index out of all that research to basically give you an indicator of how likely it is for someone in the space who is not wearing a mask to get infected.
Great. That's terrific stuff. Ron, same question.
Yeah, I mean, three areas John very focused on, and that's what we see. Number one, I do see from where all of this is going that in the end, you will need the PropTech industry will need what we're doing today from a perspective of three aspects. Number one is secure edge server within the building. Instead of having a gateway from 18 vendors, this is my gateway for CO2 monitoring, this is my gateway for access control, this is my gateway for particle monitoring. This, you can't have that many boxes in a building. Who's going to maintain, manage, support, patch them, all of that? So a single edge infrastructure where everything is running as containers. We're already seeing that we're now deployed across a lot of commercial real estate where people have insisted to all these vendors drop, as long as it runs on the Iotium infrastructure, we're fine. We're not putting in another box. That is the most secure infrastructure it's going to run on. So that's one thing. So a edge server or a cluster of edge servers which is managed by somebody like an Iotium from a security perspective, and all application software runs as containers. That's one big thing. The second thing that I'm seeing is in the end, people, they've begun to wake up to this. Because there are 400 people who will provide digital twins, occupancy experience, this application, that application, all of them need building data. So properties owners will start putting a data lake together and say, I'm pulling the data very securely, putting it into a data lake, and here's an API layer, right to that. I'm not giving you access to any data in my building or anything of that sort. Here's an API, you can write to that and show me what your application does. Once your application tells me, okay, I'm better energy efficient, I have better occupancy, the tenant is happier, this, that, then I'll take that application, run it as a container at the edge so that I'm not plumbing everything to the cloud unnecessarily. So that's the second thing. And the third part of this whole thing, John, is the elimination of the truck roll, where I really, about a couple of months ago, we provisioned an entire brand new building in San Francisco remotely. We provided the infrastructure so that Siemens could come in remotely, Honeywell could come in remotely, Train could come in remotely, and they provisioned the entire building without anybody going into the building. It was that. So this ability for third-party technicians to completely securely come back in, configure, maintain, manage their BMS, the HVAC, the lighting, the elevator control, etc., but all while air gapping their laptop, because you cannot have a technician's laptop ever touch a building network. I mean, the risk is just too damn high. So you just can't do that. So you have to air gap that completely, which is what has taken off for us during the pandemic, with everybody doing that. But these three segments, right? Edge server for deploying all kinds of applications as containers, data lake to be able to test out all kinds of applications and then decide which one you're going to use. And then, of course, the remote access. And all of this requires IT infrastructure, which we offer as a managed service. And that's where we see our business growing quite a bit, John.
Thanks, Ron. And one of the things that the REBNY Tech Committee is going to attack early in 2021 is going to be this whole convergence of cybersecurity within the IT and OT space. So we're going to be, reaching out to you and getting you involved in that. So we're excited about that. Stephen, your same question.
Sure, I'll keep my answer short. So food is one of the most important amenities in buildings, and what we're trying to do is sort of bridge the worlds of food and commercial real estate, and open up new possibilities for what people can do. Right now, your choices are typically limited by a trade-off between time and money. Do I have the time to get in my car and drive somewhere to get food, or do I want to spend the money to have it delivered? And delivery costs are very high. You can easily double the cost of the food. So we think that there's an opportunity to create new food models, new food delivery models, which will dramatically lower the cost of food delivery and make those choices sort of go away. So you'll be able to order anything, anytime, anywhere, and pick it up wherever you are. And there's a lot of infrastructure needed to make that happen, software and hardware. And so we're going to partner with a number of companies to bring that about.
Well, thank you for that, Stephen. And, you know, Stanton, Stephen, and Ron, really appreciate your time. What our goal here in the PropTech Challenge is to bring companies like yours to be seen and heard and understood by real estate companies so that we can attack the problems that we're all facing. So really appreciate your time, and we're excited about the future and moving onward and upward. So thank you, guys.